Hi. Well, today we're going to try something a little different. One of my subscribers suggested that I demonstrate how to use SQLite with in a Lazarus free Pascal application. So against my better judgment, I decided I would go ahead and try to do that. So let's get started, shall we? We gotta bring Lazarus up. Well, this is a new empty project. And by the way, I'm using the latest version of Lazarus. This is version 4.6. And it does some things that are kind of annoying to me. For example, when you bring up here's the initial form in a new project. I'm going to stretch it, make it a little bit bigger. Let's drag it down here where we can see it better. Make that a little bigger yet. We're going to need it to be big, fairly big. So the form's showing, right? And now if I if I pick, I'm going to start putting objects on this form. Like if I go over here and click SQL database, look what happened to the form. It just disappeared. How am I going to plunk something on the form now? I got to bring the form back again. Okay, well, we want to put the, I'm going to select the SQLite3 connector that's down here. You could also, instead of using this component drop-down menu, you can come over here and you can pick SQLDB up here and see my form just disappeared again. So I'm going to pick, this is the SQLite3 connection. I'm going to select that. Oh, look, the form reappeared. How about that? So anyway, I'll put that on the form. There's my SQLite3 connection. That's one of the first things you plunk on your form. The next thing I'm going to need is a transaction object. Click that here. I could also click it over here, I guess. Query. There's transaction here. I click that. Well, that works better. Here's my transaction. Now I need the SQL object, the query object. So we click that. We're going to put that on the form. Here's our query object. Now I need a connection. I need an SQL. So that's data access, I believe. I need data access. And I need the connection. Okay, it's a data source. Sorry, a data source, not a connection. Line these up. There we go. There we go. Let's see, we need data controls. And I gotta get my cheaters on here. I want a DB grid. I want that. So that's gonna go on here. And I want the navigator. That's over here. So I want the database navigator. Click that. Put that on the form. So what I'm going to do is I want to put the navigator at the top of the form. I want it to always be up here on the form. So with the navigator selected, we come over here to align in the properties menu. And I want that to be always on the top. So now we could take a look at our form. You see that it's now put the navigator on the top of the form. Now I want this, the database grid object, I want it to occupy the rest of the form. So as you size this window, it will size to the window. So we select the grid, and we come over here to the properties in alignment, and we say client. We want it to conform to the rest of the client. I did that. And now if we look at our form, we can see that it occupies the entire form. Now, of course, these objects, these SQL objects and the data source, they appear on here, but they are not visible when the form is actually displayed. Okay. Now when this form is initially displayed, I'm going to have it create our database automatically. And it's going to, wherever this application is running, that's the directory where it's going to create the database. Okay? And in order to do that, we are going to make use of the SQL connection object, and I believe the transaction object. Those two together, I think, will allow us to create our database at runtime. So let's do that. Let's go back to our code here. All right. So we're going to set up an event. I've selected the form, and now for events, I want the onShow event right here. I'll double click this box, and here's our onShow form show event. And this is where we're going to create our database, and we're going to insert a table into the database. Okay. All right. So on form show, we're going to have a couple of constants here. Constants. And the first constant is going to be where what the database name is. So that's DB name. Okay, and that's a string. And that string gets set equal to what our database name is going to be. And we're just going to call it my data .db. Okay. And our table name is going to be called, oops, I got to put a single quote in there. I'm just going to call this users because it's going to be a user database. There we go. That's the name of the table. Oop. Okay. All right, then we're going to have variables. And our variable is going to be db path name. All right, and that's going to be a string. And we're going to create that, we're going to fill that out, flesh that out with a function call here. So the first thing we have to do is we're going to assemble db path name, which is going to be equal to the local directory plus the appropriate delimiter. This is based on your operating system. And then the database name, right? All right. How do we do that? Okay, here we go. db path name is equal to, then we use the function get current ir plus, then we're going to put in the directory, separator. That's not two words, it's all one word. That's predefined in Lazarus, and it's set depending on what operating system you're running on. So if you're running Windows, it will put the correct separator in, which is the / / for Linux or Unix. And then we're going to add our database name constant, which we specified up above. Alrighty. Now we've created the path name. The next step is we're going to set the database name in the SQLite3 connection. That's the next step here. There we go. Boy, how many times do I have to type it, huh? Now let's take a look at our connection, the properties. You could just fill the name in here, but I'm doing it under program control. Instead of me just typing it in here that way, but I can do it right here in the program code, which is what I'm going to do now. So we've got SQLite3 connection 1. That's the name that was given when we plunked it on our form. Oh, I got some kind of a problem here already. I guess I'm going to run a quick compile, see if where my bug is. Oh, I didn't like the fact that I didn't put a semicolon on the end of that. Okay, now code completion should work. Put a 1, a dot. Here we go. So now I can specify database name right here. And we're going to say the database name is equal to DB path name. So we're giving it a full directory path and the name, right? All right. Okay, so we've set that up. Now we're going to do we're now going to activate it. So we've got SQLite3 connection 1. Oops. 1. And we're going to say we're going to set the active property to true at this point. Yes. So I type an A, C. Oh, connected, not active. Connected. There it is. Right here. And now we're going to make that true. That establishes a connection. So that will create the database if it doesn't exist. All right. Now we're going to have to figure out if the table is already there, because if the second time we run this, okay, every time we run this, it would create the database if it didn't exist. Otherwise, but will it create does the table exist? So we have to determine if our table has been created. All right, that's the next step. So so right here we have to check to see come on, if the table exists. All right, so this we're going to do if table exists. All right. Now this is a function that isn't already available, I believe. So what we're going to have to do is pass it the SQLite3 connection 1, which is our database. I guess you'd call that a database handle at this point. And then we're going to pass it the table name. Just like that. Okay. So that's, we're going to say that is a, I guess I didn't need that opening parenthesis. This is going to be a Boolean function. If it's true, we're going to then do something. In other words, the table is already there. So if the table already exists, then we're going to disconnect from, I'm going to do some cheating here because this is too much typing for me. I'm going to copy that, Control C, and I'm going to come down here and insert it, Control V. This basically disconnects. And then I'm going to call another function that we're going to write here. And we're going to call this function load grid. And we're going to pass it database path name and the table name. What that's going to do is I'll show you what it'll do. Let's go back to our form. So across the top of the form, you're going to have these column names. And what that's going to do is it's going to automatically fill in the column names based on the field names in the database, based on the column names in the database table, okay? There'll be multiple of these. It will grow to whatever the table has in it. That's why it's nice to have this thing aligned to the top of the form, because if I stretch the form out, it will give me more space for the column names, should that be necessary, okay? So that's where we're at with that. Well, we've made reference to two functions that don't exist. We've got to put them up here, don't we? So let's just let's make this go a little bit more quickly. We've got table exists, this stuff right here. I Control C to copy that, and I come up in here and I'll make them public, and this is I think this is the procedure, isn't it? Well, let's shift insert it right now. table exists is a function. It's a function. And it's going to return, it's going to return a Boolean value, true or false. And then we've got a procedure that we referenced down here that we've got to create, which is called load grid, right? Control C. And we come up here and Control V. I guess I didn't pick it up, did I? Control C. Oh! I gotta revert back. Yeah, it's Control C, not Shift C. Alright, now I gotta insert that right here. Like that. And I've got to tell it what these are. Okay, so this is a this is a type SQL connection, SQLite3 connection, right? So that's what I got to put in there. That's going to be T SQLite3 connection, just like that. And table name is just a string. Like that. And it's going off the edge of the margin. So I'll just wrap it here. Like this. Yeah, like that. Okay. And this one, these are both strings. Like that. Okay. That's simple enough. So yeah, we'll just write it here in the come in here. I can put that anywhere, I think. Let's see. I'm gonna put that here. I'm gonna create it here. So these are both members of Form 1. Yeah, this function and this procedure are members. They're the public members of Form 1. So I have to prefix the function names and procedure names with tform1. So let's do the first one that we called is if table exists. So that's the one we're going to create first. That's function tform1 dot table exists, just like that, right? And I guess I can get the parameter list from up above. That'll probably save some time. Like that. Control C. I'll come down here and plug it in. Control V. All right. So we're doing if table exists. We got to have some variables. We're going to create. We're going to temporarily create an internal SQL query object, and we're just going to call it query. And so that's type SQL query. All right, and then we're going to have a string, which is the query string, and we're just going to call that stir_q. And that's just a string. Okay. Now we have the beginning of our program. If you have a begin, you got to have an end. All right. So now we've got the query. We have to instantiate that query object. So right now I've got to do a query, and here's how you instantiate it, create it. And we're going to say, TSQL query create. Now it exists. Now I can actually use this object. So we're going to do a try except statement here. We're going to try to do something. And that's going to be, we're going to now set the query connection Oh, I got an error somewhere. That's why code completion is not working. So let's just do a quick compile, see why it's not completing. It says duplicate identifier. Oh. Yeah, it doesn't like me doing this. It doesn't like me doing that. Why is it not liking that? That's odd. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't like me using that name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I'm just going to call this, I'm just going to call this a connection. That's what I'm going to do there. Okay. And we'll just call this a connection here. That's going to solve that problem, I think. So if we do we can do I think that takes care of it. Do a quick compile. And I think it's got to be that. That's another reason why. If you have any mistakes in your code completion stops working. Oh, it's I see. I capitalized all that up there. I didn't want to do that. All right. All right, it should compile. Yeah. And let's see. Oh, it wants me to put in some parameters. So I'm going to give it nil. There we go. That'll take care of that problem. And there we go. Now, do we get code completion? Yes, we do. Good. All right. Now we're going to set the SQL connection up. Like this. And this is going to be, now we now call it a connection, so that's what we're going to supply. All right. That takes care of that. Now we got to set up our query string. We're trying to determine if this table exists, if table name exists in the database. When you create a database, there is a table manifest contained within it. And if the table is already defined in there, you can search that manifest using SQL to see if the table is there, and that's what we're doing right now. So we're going to have string q is equal to, and this is if you don't know SQL, this is how you search for something in a table. So we're going to do a select name from SQL SQLite_master. Now SQLite name is a field within the SQLite master table that's located in the database we just created. And since we just created it, it won't be there. Where type equals now I need to enclose this in a single apostrophe. To embed a single apostrophe within this string, I have to put in 2. All right. It's a type table. And where the name, I'm going to make that caps because that's an SQL reserved word. Name is equal to, and now I have to embed our table name in here. So now I have to put in 3 apostrophes, two of them to embed another apostrophe, and then a terminating apostrophe to end this part of the string. Okay. Now I'm going to add our table name in, and we pass it as table name in the string here, right? And I'm going to call, since I call it a connection, I think I'll just call this a table name. I think that clearly says what it is now. So it's a table name, not a specific table name. All right, and now we have to complete the rest of the SQL query, which is we're just going to append an apostrophe. So to do that, we have to say open the string, okay, put in the apostrophe and close it with a semicolon. End of string. That's how that works. Okay. Now we have to tell the query that we've got this text. So I'm going to move it into the query. So we have query dot SQL dot text is now set equal to strq. Okay. Now, why did I do it that way? Okay. If I'm debugging and I want to figure out what got put into SQL text, instead of hovering over text, I can hover over strq and directly read the string that I'm setting text equal to. I think it makes sometimes when you're in debugging and you hover over text, you're going to get this big box show up with all these things in it, and it makes it difficult to find what it actually got set to. So in this way, I can just hover over strq. I'll see exactly how that got set up to see if the table name got embedded correctly and whether the apostrophes are properly set up around these values. Okay, that's why I did that. Okay, to make the query now happen, you say query open. That does the query. All right. And so at this point, we ought to have our result. And how do we know whether we got a result or not? Because it's going to return, it returns a property. So we're going to set the result of this function equal to the property that was returned negated. All right. And this is the property it returns. I don't see is empty here. I think that's supposed to be query. Oh, I put QWERTY in. Shh. That doesn't work real well, does it? QWERTY. That's funny. Here we go. Is empty. That's what we wanted. There we go. So if empty comes back true, that means we didn't have a table. And that we, so is empty means it didn't find that table name. So we want to invert it to say false, table, in other words, table doesn't exist. And if it came back true, false, it was there. It wasn't empty. So false would get flipped to true. That means the table is there. I know that logic's kind of difficult, isn't it? All right, and then the last thing we're going to do is all right. So finally, what do? Well, we free query because we created query temporarily. And now we're going to free it, get rid of it. Like that. Okay, so it's gone. And that's the end of this function. So this will determine if the table exists in the database. I think maybe, can you see why I really don't like including SQL in my programs? Because a lot of this functionality should already exist. I shouldn't have to write a table exists function. They should have something like that already around, I would think. right, that explains what we're doing here. Okay. So we've got that function we called. Table exists. All right. Now we have to do a load grid. All right, I'll put load grid down here too. Now that is just a procedure. Oops. I think I called it load DB grid, did I? I hope I... we're going to say DB grid. And we're going to call this load DB grid. Like that. I can just copy this. And we'll just copy that down here. Shift Control V. Just do a Control V. Okay. Now let's see, we're going to have a begin and an end. I guess I got to learn how to spell begin. There we go. And they got to have an end. That. All right. Now what this is going to do, this is going to it's going to make sure that our SQL connection is connected. So let's go up here and grab that SQL connection. That's right here. Control C to grab that. And tab over. So what we're going to do there is we're going to make sure it's connected. So we're going to shift. We're going to do a Control V. And we're going to say, oh, I got a bug somewhere. Code completion's not working again. Darn it, I must have typed something in wrong. So what we've got to do is we've got to come up here and we've got to run a quick compile and see where I goofed up. Oh, yeah, now it's DB grid. Okay, quick compile. And what's that say? It says doesn't match a forward name. Oh, I think I gotta put forward in here. Is that right? See if that fixes it. Fields appear after a method property definition. I guess I got to maybe just string those two together. I thought We'll see if that fixes it. No, it doesn't like the word forward there. Well, that's odd. How did I do that in the past? Let's see, I have to look at take a quick look at my code here. Table exists. Yeah, I don't need forward evidently. Yeah, I guess I can leave that alone. Well, that's odd. Oh, maybe I didn't, I changed it to a table name, didn't I? That's what it's not liking. It expects that name to be exactly right. When you change, yeah, you can't have two separate parameter names. They have to be identical. That's what it's not liking. I'm pretty sure. Okay. Says syntax error, except expected. Oh. Do I have to have a begin in a try? I don't remember if I have to have a begin and a try. I guess I might have to. Let's see. No, I don't need that. This is in, and that's not where I'm at. Let's see. This is in table exists. Okay. Create nil, and then I do that stuff. Alright, and I don't open has to be terminated with a semicolon. That's probably what that little problem is. Except expected. All right. Let's see where I messed up. Inquiry nil. Open. Start a queue. Well, that looks good up to there. All right. Well, that's strange. I don't see where I messed up. If I go to save, it's going to ask me to give names to all this stuff. It's going to want me to find a place to save it. Let's see. Let's call this, I'm going to create a folder. It's going to call it SQLite3 test. We'll call it, test. Okay. And we're going to call this SQLite3 project. Come on, Larry. Right here. Project. Okay. I want to pick I got too many projects here. I thought I created a folder, didn't I? I guess I didn't. This is SQLite3 PR project. And okay. I don't know where it's saving stuff. I think it just threw it in Lazarus. That's what I think it did. This is crazy. It's not doing what I want it to do here. SQLite3 project. Now I want to save. This is going to be unit SQLite3 PROJ Pascal, save it. Yes, I want to see, it did not put project in this project folder. That's messed up. So now how do you save the project in there? Save project as. Now where's my folder? And I don't want it in Lazarus anymore. Okay, it put them all in here. So we don't need them. Right, we don't need any of that in here. Get rid of all these. Let's go back and look in our folder. Yeah, it put them all in there. So we can go back here and get rid of this. All right, I think they got rid of all the extraneous baloney laying around in folders here. All right. Now let's run a compile again, see where we're at. SQL text. It's looking for an accept. It's looking for an accept in this try. See, we give it one, what happens? Why is it looking for it there? Do I need to do a begin? And then an end? I guess we'll see. Try that and see what happens. Query found. Oh, I didn't put a semicolon on the end of that. I thought I left a semicolon out. Gee whiz. You see how some simple little thing, and because I saw the semicolon here, I thought, well, I terminated that string. I put the semicolon on the end of that statement. No, I didn't. It's how easy it is to overlook something. Now I don't need that except. And I think their descriptions are a little lacking. It really misled me, didn't it? Well, let's take let's give it a see if we get a clean compile now. This has got to be T form 1, doesn't it? T form 1. I think that's a bit of a problem right there. Oh, I gotta learn to spell procedure. That's probably... and it's just not liking this. Now, I should be able to get code completion to work. How about that? There we go. Woo! Sorry about that, guys, but sometimes you just got to work through these things. So we're in load DB grid. Yeah. Okay. And we're setting up the connection. We're going connected. Connected. And that's going to be set to true. All right. So now we're connected to that SQL connection. And the next thing we do is we connect. Now we have that we need to get that transaction, the transaction object connected to the database. So we've got transaction 1 dot, and this is going to be database. So it's that right there. And that's going to be set equal to our connection. Control C. Control V. Okay, we've got the connection. And now we have to activate the transaction object. So the next thing is to, oops, we're going to grab all that. And Control C, and then on the next line, we're going to activate that. Control V, and now we're going to make that active. Active, and we're going to set that to true. So now it's activated. And now we're going to connect our SQL query database up to this connection. Come on, database. Here we go. And that's going to be set. That property gets set equal to our SQLite connection. Control C. There we go. We got our connection hooked up. Now we have to connect the data set to the query. So now we have the data source. One. We have to hook up the data set. And that's going to get set equal to the query. Okay. Now the next thing we do is we clear any query data that might be in the SQL query. Fortunately there's a little function that does that for us. It's called clear. That's simple. Now we have to set up a search. Do a query. We're going to do a query search. So here we go with setting up an SQL query again. Here we go. This is another select statement. So we say select everything. An asterisk means select all. Okay. From and then we give it the table name. So we have to append that in here. And that's ABLENANE. And then we have to append the terminating, we have to terminate that with a semicolon. Like that. Yeah. And now okay, I'm using the SQL query. This is the object that we laid on the form. So that's what I'm using now. I did not create one out of thin air. So the next step is to set the query active. Active. And we're going to set that equal to true. Now I don't know if that, it's possible that setting it active may have actually executed this query. but I know for a fact that open does. So I'm going to execute an open. All right. And I'm going to copy this up above, speed this up a little bit. So I'm going to run an open. Like that. And at this point, we should have data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the grid data source up to data source 1. That makes the data source 1 information available to the grid at this point. Okay. And then I'm going to tell it to autofill the columns. So and that's a so I want A U T O fill columns. That's what I want to do. Set that to true. And then after it auto-fills the columns, I want it to auto-adjust the columns. And that's right here. That's a procedure call. It's not a property setting. Okay. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hook the navigator up to the data source at this point. So we have our DB navigator. And we're going to hook its data source, which is this. Going to hook that up to the data source. Alrighty. Now, I think we can go ahead and test this. I think. Maybe not. I think we have to set some things. As I recall, there are some parameters that have to get set. Yes. Let's take a look at T-form 1. And let's look at some options. No, not the options. Let's look at DB grid. Let's look at DB grid. And what have we got for options here? I think we want to always show editing. And auto size the columns. What are these second options here? Do I want scrolling? I don't know if I want scrolling or not. This is where you can get really messed up. It's not read-only, so I think we got everything we need set there. Okay, now let's look at the navigator. Options. We want focusable buttons. Okay. Well, I think we've got it set up. We can give it a spin, see what happens. Oh, I gotta put a colon in there, not a semicolon. We're back to debugging again. Transaction not set. I didn't know I needed transaction set to do if a table exists. I didn't know that. Well, that would be easy to fix. I didn't know I needed to do that. That's in table exists. Yeah. Table exists. Well, that's odd. I didn't think I had to muck with that. Maybe I do have to set it, huh? Well, usually I didn't know I had it. I guess you do have to set transaction up. Well, that would be easy to do. Just put it right here. See if that fixes it. Am I still running? I gotta stop it. Yeah, it's running still. That didn't work, did it? So these aren't filled in. Oh, I didn't create the table. Did I? No. Form open. Did I create the table? No. I do an if table exists. Which, okay, it didn't load the grid, it didn't do anything. Oh, that's messed up. Okay. That's the problem. See if the table exists. Okay, well, if it existed, it did something, but then it never created the table. I've got to create the table, which I did not do. Huh. So in other words, it falls through here if it So I got a bit of a problem. This logic isn't right. So I want to say if not table exists, then I want to do something. And I want to take these lines out of here. And I want to put them outside of this. Right here. And then in here, I want to handle creating the table if it doesn't exist. Yeah. So right in here, I'm going to create the table. And we can do that with a, we don't even need the, do we need transaction even hooked up at this point? I don't think we do we? If table exists, then do that, connect, and load the grid. I want to create the table. Okay. Let's see here. I guess we're going to do a try. And then we're going to do an SQL QL. We're going to get the do a direct execute. So we're going to do SQLite3 connection 1 dot execute direct and now we're going to put some SQL code in. This SQL code creates a table. So we're going to say create table if not exists. We already know it doesn't exist because we checked for it, but I'm going to put that space in there. Now we're going to add the next line. And now here's where we insert the table name. And that is called table name, yes. Okay, we inserted the table name, and now we're going to append some more stuff. Now here's where we define the fields, the columns in the record, okay? Gotta have a space after the table name. And then we're gonna, in parentheses, we put in each table column. So we're gonna have, the primary key is going to be user number, and that is an integer primary key. Gotta get this spelled right. That'll be a disaster if I don't do this right. And it's auto increment. In other words, it's gonna keep unique, and there's a comma at the end of that the end of that column definition, and a space. And then we're going to have another line. And then it's going to have a first name. First name, that's going to be text, and it cannot be null. And I wanted that to be all caps because those are reserved words. Text, not null. All right, comma, space. And then we're going to have another line. So we have a field of first name, then we're going to have a last name. And what we can do here is we can copy this. Control C, Control V. So this is last name. Then this is going to be user ID. And this is going to be a password. Okay. Now this is the last field defined. So we're going to put a closing paren on it. And a semicolon. And then we're going to close this. Close this up. This is the end of the execute direct, so it needs a closing parenthesis. And then a semicolon. All right. And we do an SQL transaction at this point, commit. It's going to be a commit. So that means we have to have transaction active, and we need the SQLite connection hooked up to it. So I'm going to take these two lines and I'm going to copy them up there. Connect the transaction object to the database connection. And activate it. Here we go. Got to have that hooked up in order to do the commit down here, right? And we're not having a finally. Going to have, in this case, we're going to do an exception. If there was an error, what are we going to say? On exception do begin. All right. We're going to do a SQL transaction rollback. Isn't SQL fun? Now, and I've got an error somewhere because it's not doing code completion at this point. So we need to do a run quick compile and see if we got errors. And the error is expected an ANSI string. Well, that's probably found declaration execute direct ANSI string. Well, I thought this whole thing was an ANSI string. Oh, I've got an equal sign there. Big mistake. It's a plus, let's see, a plus sign. That fixes that. Now we're back to where we were. No, we're not. That's transaction 1. That's why. There we go. There we go. We're putting in rollback at this point, right? Yeah. There we go, rollback. And then we're going to show a message. I'm going to show a message that says what happened. It's just going to say error creating table and then didn't want to do that. There we go. And we're going to say error creating table. Oh, and that's got to have, this is a string. And that's the end of the string. Oops, that's the end of the string. And now we want to append the error message. So E passes out back the actual message. So E dot message. There we go. And that will, and then after that message, we're just going to exit back in the code. Yeah. All right. So this is the end of the E exception. This is the end of that's the end of the try. This is the end of this begin. Okay, otherwise what it's going to do, after the table has been created successfully, it's going to disconnect the connection. It's going to shut it down. And it's going to do a load DB grid, which is this, which is going to reconnect again. And then it's going to do a query and bring in the stuff. Well, let's see if that works. No, we got an error. Oh, it's show message. I didn't put the W in. There we go. And I got to put the closing. I left the closing parenthesis for the message out. Got to have that. It says the data path name's not used. It's not used? Why didn't I use it? Well, we better check that. I think that should have been used. Where's DB path name? Didn't I use it in here? Huh. Better check that. I thought I would have, I think I should have used it. Oh boy. Gotta go through all these papers, see where I did it. Huh. Well, isn't that something? Database name. I call that DB path name here. Is that what I called it up here? Yeah. Okay. Well, what I should do is I should repeat this line down there in that function. Make sure that the database name is put in there. Yeah, so I think I'll take that line, do a Control C, I'm going to copy it, and then down here I'm going to do a Control V. Control V. There. Yeah. Now it will be okay. Let's do another compile just to make sure we come up clean. Okay. Yeah. I think we got something that should run now. Let's try it. Ah. A syntax error. Exception class. Message. Connection near table if. Syntax error. Oh. It didn't like my SQL. I left a space out. See that? That's what I mean. And I said, oh, I got to make sure I type that in carefully. And I didn't do it anyway, did I? Now let's save everything. I think we're getting close. Let's try running it again. Oh, it was still running. I got to shut that down. Let's stop. Now I need to run it. Look at that. Okay. It put in our, it loaded our grid column titles. Now can I start, let me, oh, look at that. So I wonder if I can put my name in. Now let's put John. Oh, it's not, see, it's not taking, I'm typing, it's not taking anything. So that means I've got to do something to accept data in here. It's not accepting data entry. You can see these. You can see that these icons are activated appropriately, right? Post is activated, so I could post something. What if I click insert? Field name is required but not supplied. Okay. All right. but I can't do anything with this. I can't backspace. I can't do anything. I can't type anything in here. So there's something going on with that data control. Is it the data control or is it the SQL? Let's take a look at our SQL options. Okay. I think I want to be able to auto apply updates, auto commit, cancel. I'm just going to click true for all those options. Now what about the DB grid? Editor parent something, color, font. Yeah, I'll say true to those. Okay. And let's see. I guess I can't do anything with those. No. SQL query. Okay, well, I don't know if I fixed that. I should be able to edit that stuff. Let's try it again. Let's run it. All right. It's not letting me type into this string grid. And I don't know why. I have to look back at that string grid.
A few moments later.
Hi, I'm back. Well, I think I found the problem, why it's not letting me enter data into those database grid cells. Over here, okay, we select database grid, and in the list of options, there is an option which is DG display memo text. It's currently false. It says causes the content in a memo field, which is a text field, to be displayed instead of memo string, literal. Applies to fields using the memo data type. So if I set that to true, and now we run it, now it comes up. If I want to edit, I go in here to first name. I can put in John Smith. User ID, we'll just say it's J Smith. And give them a password. And it'd be just ABC 1, 2, 3, 4. And I should be able to post that. You see it gave it user number 1. Now if I want to add a field, I put in Jane. You see what tab does. Tab, yeah. DOE tab. JDoe tab. And we'll put in anything, right? Anything. Now I'll post it. You see it's automatically incrementing this user number field. Now what if I refresh? When I refreshed it, it put the fields in order by user number. So now what if I close this? Let's see if these are all persistent. Close it. Let's rerun it. Look at that. It opened the table up and there's our data. So we've got this working. I can pick a record. You see that little tiny pointer there in that box? If I select a record, can I delete it? I don't know if I can delete it. Delete. How about that? Now if I want to add a record, is it going to put 3 in? And let's put in Philip sign P sign password. How about that? It's skipped it. So that's what's happening. It's I didn't do a post, did I? There, I just did a post. You have to click post. So, yeah, if you delete a record that was number 2, it doesn't go back and reuse 2 again. It just keeps moving on to the next incremental number. So there's no user number 2 now. Can I edit? Let's say I misspelled Philip. Let's see, it's got 2 L's. And I post it. Now if I refresh this, now it's got 2 L's. The edit took. So this is working. Yay. Well, we've got the database working, and look what it took. Now you might be able to do something a little different, make it work a little differently, but maybe you can do it in fewer lines. We did this in 128 total lines. Of course, there are blank lines in here. If I stripped out all these blank lines, it could be shorter. but this gives you a flavor for how to do a database. Now I must say, in order to get SQL3 running on your system, if you're running on Linux or Windows, you're going to have to get the libraries, the development libraries, and install them. I installed the SQL3 command line application, which lets you create and look at tables. And basically you could use that directly to interrogate a table and manipulate it. Well, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I would appreciate you giving me a like. And if you want to see more of this content, please take the time to subscribe. And always, I'm open for comments. It was one of my subscribers that asked me to do this demo. So I do read my comments and I follow up on them. At any rate, we're all done with this project. Have a great day.